Boxer? A police officer? A trainer? None of it. His podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, is one of the most popular and high-paid in the world, and his stand-up performances are adored by thousands of people around the world. August 11th, 1967. In the small American town of Newark, New Jersey, an Irish woman and an Italian man had a baby boy. His name is Joseph James. The family in which the future superstar grew up quickly split up. It was while living in California that he became interested in martial arts, signed up for training, and mastered the ancient art. As Rogan himself said, "I was terrified of being a loser, and this sport was the first thing that gave me hope that I would not become one." It would seem that Joe Rogan's career is predetermined, and he found his place in life. And the victory over the middleweight champion once again demonstrated that Joe and martial arts are one. Joe was a charismatic and bright person from school. He always used lambent humor to communicate with the people around him, among whom there were many of his friends. It was very funny and interesting to communicate with him. Even in his youth, he was a fan of comedy.
3-year-old cat, never been outside. And he sees those squirrels across the street and he's like, I remember. I remember the old way.
We must say that the career of Joe Rogan as a comedian boomed quite rapidly. After his first performance, he clearly realized that the stage was his second nature. The comedian quickly gained popularity. And 4 years later, Joe moved again, but this time to Los Angeles, where he got on the MTV comedy show Half Hour Comedy Hour. Joe's career as an actor dates back to 1994 when he first made his big screen debut in the television series Hardball. Despite his acting career, Joe continues to indulge the audience with his lambent jokes, which the audience had already fallen in love with. On one of the most ordinary days in 1997, a phone call rang. At first, when answering, Joe couldn't even believe what was said to him wasn't a joke. He was offered a position as a journalist in the UFC. Can you imagine the emotions of a person who intently watched all the sporting events? Without hesitation, Joe agreed, combining this work with filming in TV series and his own shows, which were also in demand among the public. He was soon upgraded from interviewer to fight commentator. In one of his interviews, Joe noted that it was quite a difficult task to communicate with the fighters who got a knockout. The first time it happened, and Joe didn't know what to expect. He quickly realized that the guy he was talking to, who was Mirko Cro Cop, didn't even know where he was.
I don't think it's a good idea to interview fighters after they've been knocked out.
In 1999, Rogan began making tentative plans to star in his primetime television sitcom The Joe Rogan Show on the Fox channel. And it was another right step in the direction of development and gaining popularity. Since 2005, Joseph has focused on stand-up, recording performances for various companies. In 2007, Joe Rogan presented his stand-up concert, Joe Rogan Live in Phoenix. Among the large number of projects in which Joe participated, he would also like to highlight the TV show Joe Rogan Questions Everything, which he hosted in 2013 on the Sci-Fi Network. The show consisted of 6 episodes. In it, Rogan, along with co-host Duncan Trussell, learnt paranormal and unusual mysterious objects, such as the existence of Bigfoot and UFOs. When the World Wide Web developed to such an extent that it was possible to broadcast video more or less qualitatively, Joe created his next project, a series of podcasts on the Ustream platform, later known as the Joe Rogan Experience. For 6 months, the podcast entered the top 100 on iTunes, and in 2011 began to be broadcast on the popular Sirius XM radio. Initially, Rogan's guests on the podcast were fighters, coaches, and many people from the MMA industry. But later, Joe began to invite various politicians, philosophers, actors, scientists, and inventors. In 2013, Rogan moved the podcast to YouTube when he recorded more than 300 episodes. A famous person was invited, and Joe talked to him about all sorts of things. It was very exciting, informative, and interesting. The project collected an incredible number of views. It's hard to even imagine how many and what level of celebrities took part in Joe's project. Mike Tyson, Elon Musk, and Kevin Hart are just some of the few famous personalities involved in his podcast. Thanks to his experience, humor, and charisma, Joe didn't need any preliminary preparation, scripts, or anything like that. In 10 years, Joe Rogan's podcast has gained such incredible popularity that one of the stream services called Spotify wanted to get the exclusive right to show his videos, paying $100 million for it. Just think about this amount: $100 million for the exclusive right to show just simple dialogues about this and that between Joe and famous people. His podcast is one of the most popular in the world, with about 200 million views. Before Joe met his wife, he had a brief relationship with another girl, with whom he had a civil marriage. During one of his performances, the owner of the bar kicked Joe out because the audience did not appreciate his humor. Joe is a hunter who prefers to eat meat of animals that he has obtained himself. Yes, Joe Rogan is a very versatile guy. You can't take that away from him. He became an example that if you try yourself in different fields and are not afraid of changes, you will definitely find your dream job.